Unemployment is about 11% among Latinos, much higher than the national average. What can you say to Latinos, or what can you do for Latinos who are looking for jobs?
Well, there are a couple of things that obviously would make a huge difference. One of them is all the construction workers who were laid off. Latinos were highly represented in the construction trade, and when the housing bubble went bust, a lot of people got laid off. That's one of the reasons why we're going to continue to encourage refinancing, and we're actually expanding the refinancing program that we talked about a few months ago so that it can reach more people. But we're also going to make sure that we try to push Congress to fund infrastructure projects that could put a lot of construction workers back to work all across the country. Latinos are disproportionately represented when it comes to small businesses. And so one of the things that we want to do is to continue to get more effective financing programs to small businesses and startups because they create most of the jobs here in the United States. So everything that we do is designed to help America as a whole grow, but there are certain industries that have been badly affected because of the housing crisis. Latinos have been badly affected by them. If we can start helping those areas, then that's going to give a big boost.
You spoke a lot about fairness in your speech.
Yeah.
You mentioned the importance or the need for all to pay their fair share. Governor Romney, we know that recently said that he's paid only 13.9% on 46 million income. Does he represent the inequities in our tax system?
Well, I'll let Governor Romney speak to his own taxes. What I know is that as a general rule, those who are making the most in the top 1% or in the top 1/10 of 1% oftentimes pay lower tax rates than their secretaries or their drivers or the people who are working in their homes. And that's not fair. We can't reduce the deficit if people like me or anybody else who's making a lot of money are in a position where they're paying the lowest rate in taxes in 50 years, even lower than they were under Ronald Reagan, lower than they were under Bill Clinton. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for our deficit.
Well, you have been strongly criticized by Republican contenders. For example, Romney says that you have failed America. Newt Gingrich told Univision today that your presidency is littered with broken promises.
Yeah.
He challenged you to 3 or 7 3-hour debates. When are you going to respond to them?
Well, I'll let them determine who their standard bearer is going to be. Until the Republicans have a nominee, we don't have a campaign. Right now, they have to decide who it is that they want representing them.
Who would be a more challenging contender for you, Newt Gingrich or Romney?
I don't really think about that. What I can say is this, that whoever their nominee is, they represent ideas that I think are wrong for America. They believe that we should actually make the tax code more unequal. They believe that we should not provide a pathway to citizenship for young people who were brought here when they were very young children and are basically American kids, but right now are still in a shadow. They've said that they would veto the DREAM Act, both of them. They both believe that we should repeal a health care law that stands to provide millions of Latinos who work every single day the opportunity to make sure that they've got health insurance. And so on a whole range of issues, I think that whether it's Mr. Romney or Mr. Gingrich or Mr. Santorum or whoever else they might decide to select, they represent a fundamentally different vision of America. And it's not the bold, generous, forward-looking, optimistic America that I think built this country.
Republicans are also criticizing you, saying that you are campaigning instead of governing. Now, as an incumbent, you have the right to campaign for your re-election.
Yeah.
But how will people be able to differentiate between your campaigning and your governing?
Well, you know, the truth of the matter is that I think a lot of commentators have said that I spent most of my first 3 years not doing a lot of politics because we were so busy with policy. And, you know, my general instinct is to focus on doing my job because my attitude is if I'm doing my job well, people will recognize it and the politics will follow. And so I can't really separate these debates. What I'm trying to do is persuade as many members of Congress as possible, as well as the American people, that we're making progress. We've created 3 million jobs in the last 22 months. We have seen a recovery in manufacturing, probably the best manufacturing hiring that we've seen since the 1990s. The auto industry is coming back. We're moving in the right direction. What we can't do is go back to the same policies that got us into this mess in the first place.
Talking about Latino families, there's a new Univision ABC Latino decisions poll that has good and bad news for you. Hispanics continue to support you.
Yeah.
However, the enthusiasm level has lowered. At 53%, they are less excited about your performance, in part because they feel that you didn't keep your promise for immigration reform. Can you explain to them why?
Well, it's very simple. We couldn't get any Republican votes. Zero. None. And you know, the way that the House and the Senate work right now, the Senate, even if you have a majority of votes, even if you have 51 votes, you still can't pass something through the Senate. And a lot of Republicans who used to support comprehensive immigration reform decided that it was bad politics and they wouldn't support it anymore. So I've continued to advocate on behalf of comprehensive immigration reform. Obviously, in the State of the Union yesterday, I couldn't have been clearer about not only my interest in comprehensive immigration reform, but if we can't do the whole package, at minimum, let's get the DREAM Act done. But we now have 2 Republican candidates who said they'd veto a DREAM Act. We're just going to keep on pushing and pushing until hopefully we finally get a breakthrough.
But Mr. President, one of the concerns is the deportations. There's
Yeah.
over 1.2 million people have been deported under your administration. More families separated under your administration than any other precedent. You couldn't do anything administratively for this?
Well, there are some things that we are doing. Now, first of all, the fact is Congress allocates this money. That means that there are additional enforcement mechanisms out there. Whoever was president, you were going to see some increase in terms of enforcement.
But why the deportations? Why is it necessary?
Well, because that's the law that's on the books right now. And the way our system works, the president doesn't have the authority to simply ignore Congress and say, we're not going to enforce the laws that you've passed. What we do have the ability to do, and what we have systematically done, is to use our administrative authority to prioritize and say, let's not focus on DREAM Act kids. Let's not focus on a law-abiding family that is out there trying to make their way. Let's focus on folks who are engaged in criminal activity. And until we get comprehensive immigration reform, there's going to continue to be heartbreaking stories. That's what we're trying to change.